First, we disagree. Second, Mexican tomatoes will continue to be exported regardless. Third, I hope that next week we will be able to announce a series of actions that we will be taking with all the associations and all the tomato producers. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but within the framework of Plan Mexico, we are going to give tomato producers in our country different options and continue fighting in the United States. Remember that we have a meeting scheduled for August 1st, and we hope to reach an agreement, including on the issue of tomatoes. If an agreement is not reached on August 1st, we will be informing of other actions.
The U.S. has begun imposing a 17% anti-dumping tariff on fresh tomatoes imported from Mexico, officially ending a bilateral tax agreement maintained for nearly 3 decades. The U.S. decision not only causes significant economic harm to Mexico, threatening the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of farmers, but also raises concerns about the potential collapse of the agricultural supply chain between the two neighboring countries. In the next 15 minutes, join Economy Rosk to uncover the truth behind this tax agreement.
This is a measure not taken from commercial logic, because commercial logic indicates that the agreement should prevail. We believe it is a decision with political and protectionist overtones. We are open to negotiating so that producers, in this case from Florida or U.S. products, can recover part of the market. We have always been willing to do this gradually, but right now we have to adapt to the conditions. In some way, they are trying to reactivate their industry, to reactivate their producers, and we may not agree with the way they are doing it, but somehow they are trying. We doubt they could have the capacity to do it in the short term, but it's a country decision, it's very much their decision that is affecting us tremendously. This is a measure not taken from commercial logic, because commercial logic indicates that the agreement should prevail. We believe it is a decision with political and protectionist overtones. We are open to negotiating so that producers, in this case from Florida or U.S. products, can recover part of the market. We have always been willing to do this gradually, but right now we have to adapt to the conditions. In some way, they are trying to reactivate their industry, to reactivate their producers, and we may not agree with the way they are doing it, but somehow they are trying. We doubt they could have the capacity to do it in the short term, but it's a country decision. It's very much their decision that is affecting us tremendously.
Mexico's Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Agriculture have deemed the U.S. decision unfair and contrary to the interests of both Mexican farmers and the U.S. food industry. Previously, in 1996, the U.S. and Mexico signed a suspension agreement on anti-dumping duties for fresh tomatoes exported from Mexico to the U.S. Since then, the agreement has been extended and amended multiple times before officially expiring on July 14, 2025. According to Mexico's Ministry of Economy, fresh tomatoes are one of Mexico's highest value agricultural export products, with an export value of $3.3 billion USD in 2024, of which over 95% was destined for the U.S. market. With the 17% tariff, Mexican exporters will face hundreds of millions of dollars in additional costs annually, making their tomatoes less competitive compared to those produced in the U.S. or sourced from other suppliers like Canada and the Netherlands.
We cannot enter into a scheme where, as an industry, everyone starts exporting or doing whatever they want. The government agrees with this, and we are working on a scheme that allows us to continue exporting in an orderly manner to preserve or continue demonstrating that we are not dumping. Right now, we are focused on that. We are a small and medium producer. This reflects the reality of many producers in Mexico. Not all are large corporations. Small producers or medium producers are struggling. They will not be able to pay the bonds for export issues, and they will not be able to cover these coming weeks the ability to be paying tariffs at the crossing.
The truth is, it's a very delicate and truly worrying issue for us who depend on tomatoes farming. Yes, it will be affected because what we work on is for that particular market, the U.S. market. Here, the national market consumes very little cherry tomatoes and heirloom tomatoes.
The U.S. Department of Commerce stated that the tariff aims to prevent dumping, in which Mexican companies are accused of exporting tomatoes to the U.S. market at prices below production costs, harming the domestic agricultural industry, particularly in tomato-growing regions in the two southern states bordering Mexico, Florida and California.
Hi, my name is Shai Yosefov with Jacobs Village Farm. We are a wholesale distributor here in New York City, and we're going to talk about some tomatoes, whatever we offer. So these are cherry on the vine tomatoes. We handle about 300,000 pounds of tomatoes a year. And we get it through Texas, we get it through Canada, through the United States, and mainly a lot of the tomatoes, they come from Mexico. 90% of our tomatoes come from Mexico, and with the tariffs going on right now, we kind of don't know where we're going to be. The United States can't handle the demand they don't grow enough to supply the United States of America.
U.S. importers and distributors of agricultural products stated that after the U.S. imposed a 17% anti-dumping tariff on tomatoes imported from Mexico, retail prices for this agricultural product in the U.S. are expected to rise by 10% to 50% in the near future, negatively impacting consumer purchasing power and the food service industry. This new tariff could lead to higher tomato prices at grocery stores and pizza shops compared to usual levels. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in May, the price of domestically grown tomatoes was approximately $1.7 per pound USD, about 0.45 kilograms.
If you carry through an America First trade policy that actually doesn't pick winners and losers from U.S. manufacturers, that doesn't unnecessarily raise grocery prices, you get the benefit of the leverage of the trade negotiating table, the enhanced export market access for U.S. producers that are selling abroad. You've seen this carried through in some of the recent administration announcements where they are showing that having sort of a tough trade negotiating stance is driving wins. And so if you can get that without some of the immediate harm and like consumers feeling the pain at the grocery store, that is a win-win. And that's achievable if you, again, fine-tune the approach, if you sort of just like dial in and make sure that you're not imposing tariffs on unavailable natural resources, or that you're recognizing availability concerns as part of that. And that level of fine-tuning and not being so like it's all or nothing, I think actually creates a lot more leverage for the U.S.
I came into this business because everybody has to eat. You know, everybody eats tomatoes. You go to a restaurant, you see tomatoes. You go home, you see tomatoes. So my father was in the business, and I was like, you know what? Everybody has to eat. I left high school, I graduated, and I was like, I'm going to sell tomatoes. And that's when I realized that this is a very lucrative business, and I was like, I'm gonna do it for my whole life. You know, it's a generational. We're never gonna stop eating. You know, no one's gonna stop eating tomatoes. It's not realistic because not a lot of people are growing a wide variety of tomatoes in the United States, and the labor here is too much money, and they're not gonna do the work here. In Mexico, they're gonna do the work. They're gonna get it done, and I don't think in the United States they're gonna get it done.
I trust them 100%.
I trust him 100%. 1,000,000%. That's a very good person and very good. He know what he's doing.
You know what he's doing. That box costs $2.
The only way to fix this is if they start giving growers land and they start growing more tomatoes in the United States. But right now that's not happening. So basically, either they got to fix that problem first before tariffing Mexico, or either we got to keep it the old way, the same way it was before. And they're grown in Mexico, Canada, U.S., And we basically need something that's going to protect the growers in the United States and in Mexico, because Mexico covers about 80% of the production that comes into the United States, and we don't have anybody else to send us tomatoes. It's going to be only Canada and the United States, and I don't think they could handle the volume for the United States. It could be disruptive. Basically, we're going to be very limited on tomatoes. There's people that are going to have to not have tomatoes on their shelves or in their restaurants, depending on what variety they need, because there's so many different tomato varieties.
Mexico's Ministry of Economy stated that some of the country's major exporting companies have begun exploring options to diversify their markets, seeking partners in Europe and Asia to gradually reduce dependence on the U.S. market. Additionally, the Mexican government is considering the possibility of bringing the issue to the dispute resolution mechanism under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, or imposing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural products such as poultry, grains, or dairy. According to Mexican economic experts, both the U.S. and Mexican governments need to act in a constructive and mutually respectful manner, as tomatoes are not only a key export product for Mexico, but also a symbol of the deeply intertwined trade relationship between the two economies. Resolving this dispute amicably would send a positive message about the commitment to maintaining stability and sustainable development among USMCA member countries.